BT!
Got you.
Thanks, BT.
Pilot, we're going to win these.
Why?
Chicken sandwich.
You know, I've always had a soft spot for robots. Like my old R2-D2 toy that would cruise around the house, delivering cans of soda at parties, or that weird little robo-dog that would happily chomp on a plastic bone. The idea of having a robotic companion always fascinated me. I'd see it everywhere in media. Jimmy Neutron, the Iron Giant. It seemed like everyone else got their own bucket of bolts, except me. I'd go to bed at night hoping the Iron Giant would crash in my backyard and wake me up to kick off some big cinematic adventure. But of course, that never happened. So today I want to take a look at the next best thing, a game about a guy and his giant machine gun wielding robot. This is TitanFall 2. If you like this video, consider liking and subscribing. Internet numbers make me happy. Also, a big shout out to my channel members. Who knew plugging this stuff actually worked? Consider joining for $1 a month and get access to early uploads and get your name on the wall. Respawn Entertainment rose from the ashes of Infinity Ward after Vince Zampella and Jason West had a messy falling out with Activision. A big chunk of the IW team had been working with Vince and Jason since Medal of Honor Allied Assault back in 2002, so it wasn't all that surprising when a wave of developers followed them out the door. Starting from scratch is never easy, unless you're the guys who helped create one of the biggest franchises in gaming history. Maybe you've heard of it. When word got out that the guys behind Call of Duty were going independent, you could bet the offers started pouring in. One of the more surprising ones came from Electronic Arts, the same company Vince and Jason had clashed with back in 2002, a falling out that, ironically, helped set Call of Duty in motion. But bygones were bygones, and EA likes money, so Respawn accepted EA's funding and got to work on fighting a lawsuit with Activision. What, you thought I was going to say they started making Titanfall? Well, that too, eventually. By 2014, the dust had settled and Respawn was deep into their first project, a first-person shooter with wall running and parkour movement. Oh, that's some unfortunate timing. But hey, Titanfall came out first, and it had robots. One thing it didn't have, though, was a true single-player campaign. Steve Fukuda later reflected that, despite all the praise Titanfall got, that missing piece hurt the game's ability to hold on to players after launch, and it was a mistake they weren't going to make twice. Titanfall had plenty of potential for a single-player experience. The world already had deep lore, warring factions, and lots of room for storytelling. The real challenge was figuring out how to fit all of those mechanics into a linear campaign. After all, the game had been designed from the ground up as a multiplayer shooter. The team came up with an approach they called action blocks, bite-sized chunks of gameplay that focused on one or two mechanics and pushed them to their absolute limits. Developers pitched ideas, and whatever survived the brutal gauntlet of playtesting earned its place in the campaign. This is how we got standout levels with time travel, parkour puzzles, massive mech brawls, and so much more. Beyond its innovative gameplay, Titanfall 2 also took inspiration from science fiction classics. The team, being fans of anime and action films, infused the game with elements reminiscent of Gundam, Evangelion, RoboCop, and Terminator. Meanwhile, this story's approach drew from Portal and Half-Life, focusing on an unfolding mystery rather than a traditional military narrative. Titanfall 2 released on October 28, 2016, to praise from fans and critics alike, with some even calling it one of the greatest first-person shooters ever made. But what good is all that praise if nobody buys the game? Titanfall 2 was outsold by both Battlefield 1 and Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. Given the heavyweight names attached to those franchises, that might not be surprising. But considering the sheer quality of Titanfall 2, it really should be. But before I start praising the game, let's dissect it. Titanfall 2 is a mashup of different gameplay elements, blended together seamlessly. Following a 2-to-1-to-1 game design philosophy, 2 parts combat, 1 part parkour, 1 part puzzle solving, Respawn made sure the game stays engaging and never feels like it's dragging. During the campaign, you switch between two roles: the fast, agile pilot and the powerful, heavy mech, each with its own distinct feel that adds a ton of variety to the experience. The pilot movement in Titanfall 2 is incredibly fluid. You could sprint, wall run to build momentum, and double jump to clear huge distances. On the battlefield, pilots move like cockroaches, scattering in every direction the moment a mech locks onto them. It's honestly hilarious to watch, and I can confidently say that I've never played an FPS with movement this polished. Gunfights while sliding, climbing, and bouncing all over the place feel chaotic, and so landing shots in the middle of all of that madness feels really satisfying. My favorite thing to do during the campaign was to wall run straight at someone and punch them in the face like I was in an anime. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if I ended up with more melee kills than gun kills. I used the melee button a ton, but there was one gripe I had: cinematic executions. I get the appeal, they look cool, but nothing kills the momentum faster than getting yanked in the third person to watch a 5-second assassination play out. Personally, I'd rather just see the enemy ragdoll forward like in other games. It feels way more satisfying and keeps the pace up. Plus, some executions trigger even when you're trying to be stealthy, and they don't really make sense in that context. Speaking of stealth, it's here, but not as much as I would have liked. Don't get me wrong, I know this isn't a stealth game, and I didn't come into it expecting one, but if you're going to give me a cloaking ability and let me knock people out, why not lean into it a little more? Most enemies spot you way too easily, and the cloak ends up being more of a panic button for when you're overwhelmed than a true stealth tool. I'm not trying to complain. Okay, maybe I am a little, but it's not a deal breaker. The cloak is a pilot ability, and there are quite a few of them to play around with. The cloak is the only one available in the single player campaign, but the other ones are accessible in multiplayer. There are also a ton of weapons to choose from, so many that I'm not even going to try and cover them all. The game does a solid job of balancing them, at least in the campaign, and I found myself constantly swapping guns throughout my playthrough. If I had to pick a couple favorites, the L-Star and Mastiff were my go-to for mowing down stalkers. If enemies are too overwhelming as a pilot, hopping into a mech completely changes the feeling of the game. You go from your fast but squishy self to an armored machine bringing the next Armageddon onto anything unfortunate enough to be in your way. The mech combat feels exactly how you'd hope it would, heavy and powerful. And you'll also unlock a variety of loadouts to play with. Each loadout is based on a different Titan class, with its own set of offensive and defensive abilities, plus a core ability which is basically like an ultimate. It gives every battle a nice rhythm, and all the Titan kits are a blast to use. You can tell a lot of thought went into making each one feel unique and fun. In multiplayer, the mechs are a bit more contained, with there being select classes that come with various abilities. On top of the usual soldiers, called minions because of their MOBA-style role in multiplayer, the campaign throws a good variety of enemies at you. There are standard minions with different weapons, flying drones, Terminator-like robots called stalkers, and of course enemy titans. The IMC has all the same Titan classes you could access in multiplayer, plus a campaign-exclusive variant called the Brute. The enemy encounters are designed in a way that makes each fight feel fresh, and I rarely felt fatigued like I do with Call of Duty campaigns. The Pilot's Gauntlet is your first real taste of Titanfall 2's parkour mechanics, and yeah, it could feel a little overwhelming at first, especially if, like me, you spent the days prior playing nothing but Medal of Honor Allied Assault. And no, I'm not making excuses for how bad my movement looks in these clips. Okay, maybe I am. We're introduced to Captain Lastimosa here, a seasoned pilot who serves as Cooper's mentor. Both of them are part of the Frontier Militia, heading to the IMC-controlled planet of Typhon? I never looked up how to say that. As far as tutorials go, I'm not usually a fan of the whole "here's a simulation, go practice" thing, but this one works. It feels more like those early Call of Duty training levels. You get to run through all the basics: sprinting, wall running, sliding, double jumping, and then some target practice at the firing range.
Bruh.
The last step is the Gauntlet, a timed obstacle course that puts everything you learned into one neat little package. It challenges you to move fast and clear targets efficiently, then lets you compare your time to a leaderboard before suggesting a difficulty. You could stick with what the game picks or choose your own. and since I'm a bit of a bitch, I'm just gonna stick with hard for now. The ship comes under heavy fire mid-training, cutting things short as Cooper gets shoved into an escape pod and shot down to the planet's surface. This is where we really get thrown into combat for the first time, and like I said earlier, it still holds up. After fighting through waves of IMC troops, you run into enemy Titans. Just as things start to look bad, Lastimosa shows up piloting BT to save the day. He gets overwhelmed and is mortally wounded in the process, and we're introduced to our first Apex Predator, a mercenary named Kane. The Apex Predators are a group of hired guns working for the IMC, and they're going to be a thorn in our side for the rest of the campaign. Each of them has their own style and personality, which makes them a lot more memorable than usual faceless bad guys. After a quick cutscene where Kane casually loots some militia corpses, Cooper passes out and wakes up to a prowler about to turn him into lunch. Lastimosa scares it off with one last burst of fire before collapsing and dying. Cooper, taking his helmet, links up with BT and officially becomes a pilot. Well, almost. First, there's the matter of stealing a couple of batteries and fighting through more IMC troops to actually get BT up and running. The second half of this level contains a lot of parkour, and I chose to play it pretty stealthily. After retrieving the batteries, you finally get to pilot BT, and pretty quickly get to use his vortex shield and missiles to take down some enemies, leading right into the next mission, Blood and Rust. With Captain Lastimosa gone, it's now up to us to finish the mission he started. The first objective is to rendezvous with Major Anderson and figure out what he's uncovered about the IMC's activity on this planet. But before we can get there, we run into some friendly militia forces who need backup. This is where we pick up our first Titan loadout and get introduced to Stalkers, one of the more annoying enemy types to deal with. There isn't much remarkable about this level overall. Its main purpose is to ease you into piloting BT, with plenty of mech combat to get comfortable with his abilities. Not that I'm complaining. It all builds up to a boss fight against Kane at the end, which gave me some trouble at first. Eventually, I got him down by planting the shield and spamming missiles until he finally went down. Into the Abyss is my second favorite mission, mainly because of the setting. Most of the mission takes place in a fabrication plant, which feels very much like something Aperture Science would be doing. After bouncing around the facility and fighting on moving machinery, the level culminates in a simulation-style dome that throws waves of enemies at you and some captured militia troops. The Apex Predator we fight here is Ash, and while the fight is fun, the ending is pretty anticlimactic for how much they had built up this character over the course of the mission. Ash is positioned as being a main antagonist, and Cooper just crushes her like it's nothing. I guess I wasn't alone on thinking this, as Ash would come to be the only character from this game, aside from Blisk, to eventually be included in the Battle Royale spin-off Apex Legends. Effect and Cause is by far the most ambitious idea that this game has, and it executes it very well. After arriving at the rendezvous for Major Anderson, Cooper finds the Major stuck in the ceiling. Locating his other half upstairs reveals that Anderson was wearing a watch that allows for seamless time travel between 2 points. Time travel is a dangerous mechanic, but the game does it justice. Cooper could swap between 2 points in time and use this mechanic to bypass locked doors and avoid enemies, among other creative uses. What I really love about this level is how the NPCs in the past version of the level start to obviously notice someone teleporting in and out of existence, causing the base to go on lockdown. There's a part of the level where you're just sprinting through areas, swapping back and forth to avoid lockdown measures. It's insanely fun, and this level alone earns the game a solid 10 out of 10. After wreaking havoc on this unexpected military base, you discover that the IMC was developing a world-killing weapon, and they intend to use it on the militia homeworld of Harmony. They're doing a Death Star. I'm going to breeze through some highlights for the rest of the game, because despite some interesting puzzles and mechanics, the missions are pretty short. The beacon features an arc tool that activates switches within a certain distance, leading to some interesting platforming puzzles. Trial by Fire starts off with a cool but difficult mech battle, and it is difficult, forcing you to switch loadouts to keep up with the sheer volume of enemies. The Arc is a unique mission that takes place mostly on board moving ships, while Cooper jumps between them, even being thrown by BT in one of the cooler sequences in the campaign. Towards the end of the mission, you fight another Predator named Viper who critically injures BT before you can kill him. The fold weapon is the final mission, and before I get into that, I need to first talk about the relationship between Cooper and BT. This isn't something I touched on a whole lot yet because I wanted to save it for its own segment. Respawn put a lot of effort into getting the relationship between the two to be just right. I made reference to the Iron Giant earlier, and there's a reason for that. When Cooper and BT first meet, Cooper is inexperienced and afraid. BT, in contrast, plays the straight man, very literal, and does the classic robot gag of not understanding sarcasm, leading to some hilarious interactions.
BT, I found Anderson. He's, in the ceiling.
Objective complete. We have rendezvoused with Major Anderson.
It's cold, BT.
Correct. Anderson's current temperature is 17 degrees Celsius, below the threshold of human survival.
But over the course of the game, they grow a bond. Cooper gives his signature thumbs up, and BT starts to emulate that, to varying success. They evolve from having a functional partnership built on necessity to genuinely caring for one another. And it's a beautiful story of friendship that never fails to make me emotional.
Protocol 3. I will not lose another pilot.
Sidebar, the thumbs up is a detail that I feel very strongly was lifted from Twin Peaks, given it's also the trademark gesture of a character named Dale Cooper in that show. So during the final mission, when BT gets blown to pieces, it really makes you angry. You pick up the pistol equivalent of aimbot, grab BT's data core, and shoot your way through the IMC. You get outside to an open spot, and the militia drops you a new Vanguard model Titan, and just like that, you and BT are reunited. After fighting through a very difficult section, killing another Predator, and getting Blisk's business card, BT manages to get Cooper to safety and sacrifices himself to destroy the fold weapon. Without time to grab the data core this time, BT is surely dead for real. Fans have speculated online that BT could still be alive. In the mission Affecting Cause, BT uploads part of his AI into Cooper's helmet, allowing for long-distance communication. Then, in the end credits scene, we get an extended shot of Cooper's helmet as it starts blinking. This apparently translates to Jack in binary, which is an interesting detail and would mean that BT is most likely alive somewhere. But unfortunately, despite the game being almost a decade old, we haven't gotten a sequel yet. We almost did. Apparently there was a TitanFall project in the works at Respawn, but it was scrapped. Instead, we got Apex Legends, a battle royale in 2019. I don't like battle royales, so I haven't played much of it, but I'm upset that we got that instead of TitanFall 3, and I blame PUBG for that. I've thought a lot about whether or not I should cover multiplayer for this game, and I'm going to choose not to, but I wanted to explain why. Aside from my Xbox 360 days, I'm not much of a multiplayer gamer. I never really have been. The competitive aspects just don't interest me that much, and while there are exceptions, I generally don't care for multiplayer modes. So instead of forcing myself to write something about this, I'm just going to skip it. This video is long enough. TitanFall 2 surprised me the first time I played it, and it continues to sweep me off my feet with each subsequent playthrough. The game is crafted by a team that truly cares about video games and wanted to deliver the best experience that they could, and I think, despite a lackluster sales figure, they achieved that goal. TitanFall 2 is almost 10 years old and is the subject of much praise online. I'm not exaggerating when I say that it's one of the best first-person shooters I've ever played. And if you haven't played it, why? Just fucking play it, it's good. I promise. I really hope that sometime in the future, Respawn will come to their senses and give us a TitanFall 3, but given the current landscape of gaming, it's not looking too great. That's all for this video. Thanks for watching.